You're listening to Community Forum on KCCC 930 AM, sponsored by Eddy County, honoring God, country, and family, thriving with industry since 1889.
Thank you for listening to Community Forum. My name is Johnny Chandler. I'm the owner of KCCC 930 AM. The host of Community Forum with me today is Executive Director of the United Way of Eddy County, Kyle Marksteiner. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Johnny. Thanks for having me today.
Good. So that's the second time that you've been on as Executive Director of United Way. Of course, you've helped orchestrate and have been on the radio station plenty of times when you work for Mayor Janway and put on really, really great 4th of July celebrations and all kinds of events when you were under there. I mentioned that because we just got done with 4th of July this year under a new mayor. It was equally as good.
It was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun.
That finale was beautiful.
It was.
And Johnny, I got 3rd place in the pie eating contest.
No way.
But nobody wanted to be close to me afterwards.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. It was the crust was hard to get into, and so I did whatever I had to do.
Well, 3rd place. Didn't you finish better in previous years?
Well, the one year I took 2nd in the watermelon contest, but I was the only candidate over 12, and so I think I had a little bit of a...
But you took 2nd?
Yeah.
The only candidate over 12, but you still took 2nd?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, obviously somebody much younger really loves their watermelon.
What happens at the watermelon eating contest?
I
think I won one, and I don't know, but I had some serious competition at this pie eating contest.
You know, I think about like pie eating contest versus watermelon contest, which is exactly why we're not on the radio today at all. But when I think about those two, I think I'd much rather be in a watermelon eating contest than a pie.
Absolutely.
I mean, the watermelon is going to be light, refreshing, hydrating.
Well, yeah, and you had to find some way to get into that crust with just normal teeth, and it was difficult.
Well, we will not say who homemade those pies then, or if the crust was too difficult.
Yeah, exactly.
I would say, but a great event. It was a really good time. So kudos to the city of Carlsbad yet again, and the first one without Kyle involved in a while. So that's why I wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, I was quasi involved. I was there. In the background eating pies.
Well, we're still going to give you credit for it then either way. All right, so Executive Director of United Way, you came on a while back. You were fresh Executive Director when you came on last time.
Exactly. I was enthusiastic about what we had coming up, and now I'm enthusiastic about what we got going on.
Yeah, so how long have you been Executive Director officially?
Well, I started October 23rd. I was full-time. I was on a little contract before that, so about 9 months. Mm-hmm. It's going great out there in the community, just looking at new programs to assist people, getting people back on their feet, but then also looking for stewardship events and just kind of community events. We do not have a slow day. So
So tell me a little bit about your team. I've seen you guys on Facebook a lot. I noticed there's a new photo floating around at the gazebo.
We had an anonymous donor get us a professional photography. So I'm the only full-time employee, and then we've got 3 awesome part-time employees. That's Ada Beth Majerus, Lexi Alvarez, and Rondi Jones. Ada Beth's the office manager. Lexi is our 211 coordinator / kind of media person, and then Rhonda's campaign and special events.
Do you make your daughter volunteer?
I do not make my daughter volunteer. I have paid my daughter to come help me with some things.
No, why pay her?
I paid her out of my pocket.
Okay, I was like, but she's your daughter, right? You could just make it happen.
I know, but she needed some money. So
yeah, no, and then so she's so active, and she's great. She takes a play out of your playbook, I think, even at this young age when it comes to the community and doing things.
Well, she is way into drumming. That is her thing, and she is very good at what she does. In fact, they had practice today. It's kind of. I did not know this. I was never a band kid, but the percussion starts a couple weeks before the rest of the day.
Oh, really?
And
you would think they would start later because, I don't know. I failed in band. I'm not a band guy either.
Yeah. No. I think it's so important. I mean, you have to have the bass line and the drum stuff to get going.
So remind us of United Way, some of the programs, legacy programs that you've done before you took over.
Sure.
Yeah, you can remind us and when those things are, how we can help.
Yeah, and one of my jobs, I see it as kickstarting post-COVID. There were so many things that kind of fell to the wayside because of COVID or during COVID, and a big part of what I'm trying to do is get things back to how they. Now, there's modifications always, but Stuff the Bus. It was a big school supply drive. Years and years in the United Way. You'd park in front of Walmart for a weekend, and you'd sit out there. You get volunteers and teams, kind of a competition, and ask people for school supplies. We got that back. We had a great weekend. $12,000 in school supplies just for that weekend, and we got some more grant school supply donations coming in and things like that. So our office was full of stuff, and so it was good to have Stuff the Bus back going. The 211 program, what I really like, it's a primarily an information thing. Hey, I don't know who to call. Let's call 211.
Right.
I always go back to the old Vanilla Ice. If there's a problem, I'll solve it.
Yeah.
And so we're the Vanilla Ice of the community. You call
All right.
211. But then we also have some ways we can help. And what I really like is we have a way to help with like water bill and electrical bill. You got some people, we had somebody today, that mom had a stroke. Mom was in the hospital for a few weeks. Mom comes home. Mom's got a whole bunch of cancellation notices and bills.
Right.
How do we get things back kind of just where they had been, get mom back online? So these are very individuals who are certainly worth helping. We're helping them get back to where they were. These are individuals who need assistance. Most of the people we help are elderly. We have a few drives, a few distribution efforts we do every week. Every month, and then we partner with some great people. But what I really like is, when I first started, I type up all the numbers and you look at it and you're like, well, wow, But then when you start adding up all the volunteer hours and you start doing all that, then you're like, okay, here's what we're actually accomplishing. And so, hundreds of hours of volunteer stuff, the bus, the food distribution. I cannot do these things by myself. We're doing these things because I'm kind of coordinating and then bringing in lots of other people to do them.
Right. Now, what has been the most challenging thing in your 6 months or so at the United Way?
I think learning budgetary issues, learning budget. I have ways I do budget, but they're the Kyle way.
Right.
I look at the bank account, and so
it's all in my head, guys. Trust me.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I know that's not good enough, but you it's like a different language, and you bring in and I understand why they do things the way they do, but there's a lot of new things on some of those sheets where it's like, well, doesn't this word look almost the same as this word? And I don't understand the difference between it. So I think some of the budgetary issues, and then just it's been largely successful though, just getting things going. I mean, people want to see enthusiasm. They want to see some energy. We did a campaign presentation this morning at 7, and I had all these other fun photos of events we're doing, and the last photo I had was just a cardboard box. And the reason I ran that, it was a cardboard box that I got to work, and one of the hotels called me, and they had a bunch of soap and blankets and stuff like that. And so I said, I'm sure I'll come get it. Went and picked it up, brought some of that stuff to the battered family shelter, some of it to transitional housing. And so, I loved it because that wasn't on my plan when I do a mission statement or do a big list of the major activities we had that year. But I spent half of that day getting supplies to people in need. And so I love that. I love the fact that we have to be a little flexible and adapt and find ways to help people. Most of the people we help are obviously Eddy County residents, but we did get to assist with some of the Ruidoso folks. We didn't want to try to shove the entities out of the way that were primarily focused on that, but we'd had people reaching out to us, and so we would help them find a place to stay, help them get some hygiene kits, clothing, things like that. They had some interesting stories. I mean, I got to talk to some of those folks. It's so interesting when you take into account the animal variable.
I know.
We've got 4 people, and okay, great, and 6 dogs, and a parakeet, and
and don't forget about the 4 horses, right? Yeah.
And so all those stories, and you hear more discussion about that elsewhere about it's you're not just helping people. I mean, there was one woman, we had her all set up. Well, can I bring my cat? Well, no, ma'am. Apparently, you can't bring your cat. Oh, I don't want to do that then. So it's really the variables that you don't think about that come up.
Yeah, and that's a good point. So it's just, when a tragedy that struck Ruidoso, as it has multiple ways, fire, flooding, right? Just like the Little Bear Fire did like a decade ago.
Sure.
It takes a community beyond just your county to help out, I think. And that's where, they have a United Way of Lincoln County, I imagine.
Sort of. They're actually tapped in kind of more to Doña County.
Oh yeah, one of those regional deals.
But there were different groups. I was on some statewide coordination efforts in terms of communication, letting people know what resources. Our big thing, we always encourage people to kind of work with some of the existing entities.
Right.
There's a lot of folks, hey, I'm going to take my prom dress and I'm going to throw it in the back of my truck. I'm going to drive it up to Roswell and find somebody and give it to them. I mean, find a way to help, but be smart about it.
Right. Yeah. Anytime that there's like donations on a tragedy, some people think that they can generalize in their head why this is something that somebody would want. Right. Like this makes a lot of sense to them that this old prom dress is an arbitrary example, right? Would be great for somebody who lost their prom dress in the fire of their house or something, right? So in their head, they can make sense, but really, it's kind of a little bit difficult.
No, and we talked about it a lot. How do you harness that? How do you harness long-term energy? I mean, with giving, we're emotional creatures. Giving is an emotional decision. So, and I've seen that. I remember during COVID, the first outbreak in New Mexico was kind of up in the Four Corners area.
Yeah.
And I saw some of that. I was very moved. I made a donation up there. Well, now I'm on all their lists. So, they keep, hey, are you going to give us a donation again this year? And I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah, right.
So, you're taking that and you're trying to, and so the other end of it is how do you harness that? How do you take that want people have to belong to something, to be part of something good, and turn it into kind of more long-term programs to assist people? I mean, one thing we'd really, really like to work on is just a bigger, broader discussion in Carlsbad about the homeless issue. It's significant. It's and it's anybody who has a quick soundbite on how to solve that issue isn't paying attention, because it's not an easy issue to solve. So,
yeah, well, for perspective, it doesn't. I mean, it's obvious, you can see it, but it doesn't feel like as much of an issue here as it is in other communities. So, I mean, to me, it feels like our community is in a potentially unique position to tackle it earlier than later. It gets out of control in some places.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I where my office is, that it is pretty significant.
Okay.
And there's areas, and there's, you get into addiction issues, you get into behavioral health issues, you get into different. I mean, that's what the special session is about right now. A big part of it is when can you intervene on people? How much rights does an adult have, and when does the state get to say, you know what, you're a danger to yourself and others, we're stepping in? It is extremely complicated, and I mean, I'm just getting kind of my toe wet on that whole issue, and it's overwhelming, but it's certainly something I want to do more to help with.
Yeah, there is no soundbite. You're absolutely right. There's nothing that anybody in the country seems to be able to figure out what to do.
No, I can't think of a single place where there's not room for improvement. So it's it's issue in our community.
But that's relevant, because this is something you deal with directly as the United Way executive director. You don't deal with homelessness directly, but you deal with individuals that need help.
Right, we do it. It's both. A lot of our programs are more designed, the ones that we specifically do, of getting kind of people back online, the woman with the stroke. I mean, there was a setback, and with a small amount of investment of people's donations, we can kind of get her back to where she was financially beforehand. That small investment wouldn't solve some of the bigger issues. I mean, we work with some of our sister agencies around the area to help, and then we try to look for. What else can we do? Food efforts. Are we at least making sure people are fed? We're looking at even water and shelter, things like that. We have a food distribution where people come out, sit in the cars, and we hand them food boxes, and we realize, it's hot out there in the summer. This is mostly elderly people. Not all these cars are great. And so now we're looking for a program to make, have ice cold water there, maybe some swamp cooler fans or something like that. So
anybody that's grateful enough to not have to worry about the price of gallon when they fill up their car should be thankful, right? Yeah. There are a lot of people that have to concern about how much money they can put in their gas in their vehicle, how much they can run their air conditioner and buy groceries at the same time, right?
And one of the messages we passed on to everybody is, they look at Carlsbad's per cost. Hey, you got some wealthy people down there. Y'all are fine.
No,
well,
but yes, we do have some wealthy people down here. Nice.
Yeah, it's great. But when you're on a fixed income, when you're on Social Security or something like that, and the number on the other end of the equation goes up and yours doesn't, guess what? That gap gets bigger and bigger. And so a lot of seniors in particular are struggling because things are more expensive now, but they're not getting any more funds than they had been. And so, it's things like that where I really think we try to make a big difference.
So how you were on the United Way board previous to you being the executive director, correct?
About a decade ago.
Okay, so for 10 years or so, right?
Yeah.
So you're very familiar with the United Way.
Correct.
To some degree. So what is the difference between the needs now, before, and you're an executive director?
Oh, wow.
Is there a difference? So you're saying that it's getting worse and worse. It's it's harder and harder for some people. A lot of people appears to afford their stuff, right? But a decade ago you weren't involved. So, I mean, a decade ago was before 2000, tell me, is 2014, what does it look like when you started in 2014?
I mean, I guess the biggest thing I notice on a day-to-day basis, doesn't fully answer your question, is what we do. We used to primary just be an allocations agency.
To other agencies, right?
The old model was all these other nonprofits do their thing, we go out and do the fundraising, and then we divvy it up. That doesn't totally work anymore, because a lot of them are doing fundraising on their own, and a lot of entities we'll just give them money. And so what we've really doubled down on some of the 2-in-1 services, like we said, the utility bills, electric bills, things like that. I wasn't as involved in some aspects of this 10 years ago, but it certainly does seem like some of those have just spiraled out of control. You know, the monthly electric bill you pay, and you get to put it on a payment plan, but that doesn't really solve the problem. I think some of those things have just are really just our people are having a hard time grasping, how to make ends meet with on some of those issues.
Right. So if I needed help with if I had an unfortunate incident like the woman you were referencing had a stroke,
right.
The water department, the electrical company, the gas company, they're not going to, they have a business to run. There's some things you could do with them, and you call them if you're smart enough to get ahead,
sure.
right?
They have abatement programs, they have payment plans, they have things like that, but there's only so much they can do.
Right.
And the water is government entity. Government has to be pretty consistent with the service they offer everybody, so they don't get to really make judgment calls. They said this is how much water everybody owes.
No, and the water department's not, and I don't have an issue with the Carlsbad Water Department. I know some people complain about it. I've yet to have a complaint ever, and I've been here 3 years now. But water is like this in every city, everywhere. Right. It's not like Carlsbad's special to where look, we really have to shut your water off right away. You know what I mean? Pretty quickly. This is everywhere. This is very standard business with any municipality. Right.
It's tough. We get a lot of calls about people needing assistance with rent. We have not added a rent program yet because to be frank, we just need to learn more. If let's say we get a few $1,000s for a rent program, well, the first 3 people who call us are done. So how do you find a good, fair way to do that? Is there some way to make the dollars work?
And don't want to really start something that you can't consistently follow up with either.
Exactly.
Right. I'm not going to flash. So I paid one person's rent 1 month. What is the real benefit of that?
And then how do you ensure that you're not? Yeah. Who found out about that first? Did you call one of your friends first?
Right. Exactly.
And so. I'm not against it if we can find a good roadmap for doing it, but I just want to make sure it's something that's consistent and fair.
If I need help with my electrical bill, my gas bill, my water bill, what type of documentation do I need to bring to you?
So you need ID, you need the bill, and then you need proof of how much your income.
Right. So you need a W-2 if you have one. Right?
Yeah, or even a bank statement.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
We had some folks come in today, did not speak a word of English, and I don't speak a word of Spanish. And one of my fellow office workers, she was typing up things and printing them and handing them to me, and then I was handing them to them, and we worked it out. But it was tough, but we took care of it. So
I would suggest, and I have a suggestion for you for anybody that's listening. Google Translate is very good.
That's what we use.
Yeah, Google Translate is actually pretty good.
Yeah. I'd like some Spanish lessons. I'd like to get all our materials moved to both. But we want to, I don't try to find any reason to not help people other than just trying to make sure that it's somebody, that we need to help. We had one of my friends who'd been in social work his whole life was visiting, and somebody came in and I gave the guy a space heater and said, here you go, sir. And my friend is very cynical. Oh, that'll be in the pawn shop in a few minutes. I can't do that. I cannot go through. I could try my best to make sure that everybody's giving is the most deserved, but there's just no good formula for me, to ensure. I cannot guarantee that nobody will ever abuse the assistance we provide.
Right, exactly. And that makes a lot of sense. We all know that. But that's also why you have to have a little bit of a criteria in order to give out, because people will take advantage.
Yeah, no, and the ones I love, in some cases they might owe, let's say, I'll make up some numbers. Let's say they might owe $500 on something, and we have a system where we could pay $200 of that. Right. And so we'll say, hey, you find up a way to get the other $300, and we'll pay the $200. And that, we don't negotiate. That's within our policy. But I really like those where it's.
But somebody just needs a little help, right? Not a full handout, right?
Sure.
You go and I can afford half of this air conditioning bill this summer, so we're not cooking in our house,
right?
But the other half this type of year does get really hard, right? Yeah. And I qualify. What can you help me?
Right,
and it's up. That's good because shows people trying, and you want to assist them.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are the ones those are the hardest to me because I can't help it. So I can't describe it either. But when I see somebody on the side of the road asking for money or asking for help, sometimes I help them and sometimes I don't, and I can't really figure out what it is or what it is about that. And it's nothing specific. Except for there's something at that moment made me feel like this person definitely needs some help over others, right? And so when this gentleman walks in and you end up giving him a space heater and somebody cynically says, oh, it's going to end up in the pawn shop. Well, there's something about that moment where you felt like, yeah, man, here, You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to help you. And it doesn't matter what he did with after that, because I'm saying it's like a real personal thing sometimes.
No, and I'm going to, it's a comedy. Yeah, like I want to give people the benefit of the doubt. And absolutely, I cannot, if I show to work every morning and just don't trust a single person that I see, then why am I there? I should pick a different career. That being said, we're able to give out things because people in the community are being generous to us and providing us with others. So they are trusting us to have some sort of vetting process and be responsible with
But
it.
you've already lived a cynical life for a little bit because you were a journalist for a while.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah,
So
I know.
You were a print journalist. I was a TV journalist. We were cynical for a long time.
Yeah. I like to see that the best approach in life is to not be naive, but to not be absolutely cynical, but to kind of survive the fire, get through, realize that the world isn't always perfect, but then still be committed to trying to make a good impact in the world.
Well, don't harden your heart too much. You know what I mean? When cynical stuff happens and people take advantage of you, it can harden you. And that's when you end up not helping somebody that needs it, I guess. That's just my personal take. That's not the United Way's. What do you have coming up anyways? Like, what's new with the United Way? This is... early August 2024?
So we're sitting here in early August of 2024, and what we've got coming up very soon in mid-September is what's called the Day of Caring. Okay. And that's where we work with nonprofits and businesses, and we go around and instead of flinging money at stuff, we fix things. And so in some cases your office gym might need painting or things like that. And so some of these companies have some folks with bigger skill sets and more hands. To be frank, they got more people, and so they take care of that. So we're working on Day of Caring. We're also just looking at some little fun things. I would really like to be in the Renaissance Festival this year.
Sure.
And maybe have tomatoes thrown at me.
Okay.
And so, so we're looking at like some just little stewardship things. But I think as far as community ways to help, Day of Caring is probably the number one that we've got coming up.
Okay. Day of Caring. That's a big annual one for United Way nationwide.
Many United Ways do something similar to Day of Caring.
All right.
Yeah.
I don't know how specific you want to get. This is just my personal interest in this, right? Maybe other people find it interesting or not. But I know that donations and local donations are critical. But how much funding comes from the National United Way down to you guys? How does that work out?
So actually, we're sort of a franchise, and so a very small fraction of we actually pay a franchise fee for that brand, basically. And then what they provide is they provide training, they provide assistance. Sometimes we get funds through other United Ways where like you lived in Carlsbad, you moved to San Antonio, you make a donation and you put us on there, and so we get it. So so that's how that works. But no, I mean, when you look at a breakdown, we have several wonderful employers here, and they have both corporate donations they give to us, but then most importantly, it's individuals kind of saying, hey, I love the stories, and I've had two in the last couple of days. Hey, I was growing up. This is how the United Way helped me. I want to give back. And so it's a lot of people kind of trying to return the favor for experiences they've had in their lives.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. That's typically who gives the most too. Like I haven't, Boys and Girls Club. I think of Denzel Washington when I think of the Boys and Girls Club. You remember that, right? He was at the Roswell Boys and Girls Club for a little while, I think, or some connection to the Roswell, and he ends up donating money to them continuously throughout the rest of his life because of whatever experience he had when he was younger or some experience. So it's very interesting that that's how it happens. Now, if we could only had a Denzel Washington United Way when we were younger.
But we do have some awesome people, and we have. It was a neat one the other day. I was kind of just sharing a story on Facebook about some of the stuff we did, and a local businesswoman contacted me, hey, I want to help, and brought back a very wonderful contribution and said, take those programs you're doing and expand them a little bit more.
Nice. Right. So that's a great segue to getting into, as we always should anytime you're on, your job is to ask for money and to promote, right? I mean, much more than that. That's me simplifying it. But so how do we donate? How can you help? How can you promote United Way of Eddy County?
Sure. I mean, if you want to donate, go to our webpage and don't ask me the URL right now.
No, just go to United Way Eddy County through the Google bar.
Google it.
Or Bing if you want to do that.
Yeah, so we've got a couple options there, PayPal, et cetera. Promote it. Just share our stuff you see on social media. Talk about us. Let people know what we're up to. That if you see something you like, if you've got some more ideas on ways we can help. We've been working on school supplies. We've been working on food. We've been working on utility bills. I mean, those are bread and butter things of just helping out our community. And so just keep helping. People have been incredible. A lot of encourage your company maybe to let us show up. I would love if you can let me in the front door and I can just talk for a few minutes about what we do and explain what we do.
Now, we record this radio show now at Southeast New Mexico College, right? Are you connected into Southeast New Mexico College?
We are working. I have spoken with Dr. Beardmore. Right. He made a contribution last year. He was trying to work on some payroll stuff to set up. I don't know if we're 100% there, but I think he wants to get something
When
going.
I worked at the city of Albuquerque for the mayor there, they had a very much payroll-oriented in-house United Way setup, and the peer pressure within the organization, within the department that I was in, within the city, there's a lot of peer pressure to donate to United Ways too, which is it's a positive thing, right? And there was a competition within, right? Which department is going to help United Way the most, and what you're going to do?
No, exactly.
And it's also a lot of fun, and it's for a good cause. And so I know for a fact that that's been mentioned in a college-wide email already about our direction of the United Way. So that's going to happen for sure, no question. And that is really, really a great way to donate to United Way. And then think about it real quick, and I'm going to do your job for you real quick, okay? So think about it this way. The United Way, if you want to donate to an organization, there's all kinds of places you can donate to. We know that, right?
Absolutely.
Everybody's got their hand out. But the United Way is an organization that hands out to the ones that has their hand out and helps people, right? So not only will they donate to the charity of your choice if it's connected to United Way, right, which you can do, they also donate to nonprofits in general, and then can also donate directly to somebody's electrical bill, right?
Right. And it's a mix, and that's so important. You know, we are still doing the allocations and helping in other nonprofits, but we have some pretty big programs, and time-wise, they're a huge part of what we do. I mean, dealing with a couple of people who don't speak the same language as you do and ironing out their electric and water bills took an hour and a half this morning.
Yeah, easy, right? And that was not an hour and a half planned, right? On a very busy day. All right, so the job is full-time execative director.
Oh, yeah. Full-time and then
it's
some.
40 hours.
No.
I mean, that's so, but still, I was going to ask, what are you really doing?
Well, I came in, I had a little bit of an off weekend, came in Sunday, did 3-4 hours this Sunday, started at 6:30 this morning. We'll see how long I go, but I'm sorry. I'm not if you're going to do something, you go all in, or you don't waste your time. I mean, you get a job, and your job is to do the absolute best possible you can. And then that's all there is to it.
Understood. That makes a lot of sense. United Way of Eddy County, go onto their website, donate financially if you can, donate your time if you can as well, learn all about them. Kyle, you want to have the last word?
Hey, Johnny, I thank you. I'd love to come back sometime and give everybody an update. And, last time we did this, next day, multiple calls. So people are listening.
Wonderful. I love that. And so when you get back with after the day of caring, let's get you on and talk about how that went.
Thanks a lot.
All right.
You're listening to Community Forum on KCCC 930 AM, sponsored by Eddy County, honoring God, country, and family, thriving with industry since 1889.